private speech in second language learning and self-regulation. We have been talking about the significance of the private speech in self-regulation. Let me remind you what we mean by self-regulation. By self-regulation, we mean autonomous action. So from a time when you need guidance to a time when you become an autonomous learner or an autonomous person in conducting a task. And this self-regulation is the goal of all second language learning and all other learning also. So researchers in the past have not actually refused the presence of this private speech. However, they have interpreted it differently. In sociocultural theory specifically, private speech has been given a lot of importance. And it has been said that private speech of the children does not disappear. It only transforms into inner speech, which the adult learners use to regulate their thoughts. If we talk about other theories, their significance has been interpreted differently. For example, you have this Hatch in 1978 who says private speech or inner speech is not a social speech. It is not meant for other people, and it is not even generated socially. It is simply language play. It is what a child uses to just play around with the words that he or she has heard. He or she might not be able to even make sense of whatever the words that have come to them, but they are just playing it around. And it does not have any significance for language acquisition. We have discussed before that similar views were also put forth by Piaget, who said private speech is only egocentric speech. That is, it is a speech that happens at a certain developmental stage when the child cannot differentiate between others and self. So it only denotes some sort of a development stage. If we come to sociocultural theory, the private speech suddenly becomes very important. And it is almost pivotal, mediating mean to learn. Let me remind you that sociocultural theory has been placing a lot of emphasis on mediation. And it has been arguing that human beings do not engage with their world directly. Rather, they do it through some sort of mediating tools. And one of those primary tools is language. So when a child or when a person uses private speech or inner speech, that is actually helping them to mediate with the social world around them. And it is highly important in language learning. It helps them to appropriate their knowledge, readjust what they already know of that knowledge. It helps to self-regulate their behavior, and it helps them to resolve the problems that they are facing in the learning context. So there have been several studies on private speech, and different methodologies have been used. Some of these you could try yourself. For instance, you have this Ohata who actually worked with 8 adult learners, and they were asked to put on microphones, and for a long period of time, they were asked to somehow vocalize their private speech, that is, to speak out what they were actually as they were talking to themselves. And in these studies, including Ohata's, there has been evidence that the use of private speech does lead to learning. Now, such a view of learning would actually criticize the schema theories, this concept that learners have some fixed structures in their mind, and all the knowledge that comes to them somehow gets adjusted in those structures. Sociocultural theory is saying those structures themselves are appropriated or readjusted every time, and it is done through the use of the private speech. In that way, it also goes beyond the information processing models, because it provides a richer way of how learning is taking place, and at the center of it all is the private speech. Now, Ahata talks about 3 different types of private speech. One is repetition, the other is vicarious responses, and the third is manipulation. We'll talk about them in more detail and their significance in second language learning later.